If you're thinking about moving to New Bedford, Massachusetts, I want to share with you 10 things that you need to know before you decide to make a move here to New Bedford, Massachusetts. Number one, winter. So let's talk about winter a little bit here in New Bedford. So if you're familiar with the New England, you know how cold it can get here in the whole New England, and especially places like Boston and the Western Mass. So New Bedford being close to like Boston, it does get really cold here during the winter time, and we do get some heavy snows here. We get some heavy snowstorm, but I have to say over the past few years, we haven't seen crazy snow like we used to. I remember one time, I think it was probably like 10 years ago, it snowed for like 3 days straight. They had to cancel the schools, and we used to get some heavy crazy snowstorms here, but that has changed a lot. We haven't seen a lot of snow for the past probably like 4 years, and the weather is actually changing here, but it's something that you need to know. You need to prepare. If you're coming from a place where it's cold, so you'll be fine. But if you're coming from a place where you're not used to the cold, so it's something that you need to really prepare for before you move to New Bedford. And also sometimes we get some colder nights, so oftentimes we run the heat at like 80 because it does get really cold, so we need the house to be warm. For me, my wife, and our kids, it can get really cold inside the house. So it's definitely something that you need to know before you decide to make a move, and make sure you prepare for the winter and make sure that you are okay with the winter here in New Bedford. So number two on the list, I have to say schools. So when it comes to New Bedford schools, we don't have the best schools here. So if you're looking for a place where you want the best schools, you might want to look again, because New Bedford, the schools are not that great here. Although it is improving a lot, they're actually building some new schools. We have new elementary school coming in the southern area, which is very helpful for the area. We need a new school over there, but the education system, I wouldn't say it's the best. I mean, I had some bad experience in the past with my son, and I'm not gonna go into that right now. But it's something that you need to prepare, especially if you're gonna relocate here with the kids. So I highly recommend you kind of do your research on some schools here. But it is not the best. It is not the best place for the best schools here in New Bedford. So I just think that's something that you should know before you decide to make a move. The northern area is kind of one of the best area here in New Bedford with some better schools. So that's why if you don't, if you're not familiar with the New Bedford, and if you're thinking about moving to New Bedford, you gotta reach out to me so I can help you find the right spot for you and your family. But yes, the north end, that's where you're gonna find most schools there in the northern area. So number three here on my list is unsafe neighborhoods. So just like any other cities here in Massachusetts, there's always the good areas and the bad areas, and there is some bad areas here in New Bedford, which is sometimes it's not safe. Although it has improved for the past few years, the crime rates has actually decreased to now, but there's still some activities happening here in New Bedford. So I highly recommend you do your research before you move to that neighbor. My suggestions for you is, if you have a question about an area, I highly recommend maybe you contact the police department. They can give you some information, but I highly recommend do your research before you move to that area, so you don't end up regretting later. And it's important that if you are working with somebody that maybe that really knows the area, so they can put you in the right spot. But I highly recommend just be aware of some areas here in New Bedford. I'm not gonna go too deep in details with this, but I highly recommend just do your research before you decide to make the move, or you're definitely going to regret later and you're going to hate it. So number four is the restaurants. So if you're moving to New Bedford, I have to say New Bedford has one of the best restaurants in the country. I really enjoy all the foods here in New Bedford. We have all type of foods here: Mexican food, Dominican food, Chinese food, Japanese food. And one of my favorite things to eat here in New Bedford is the seafood. So here you're gonna find the best seafood restaurants, and one of my favorite restaurants here in New Bedford is the Black Whale. So if you ever visit New Bedford, I highly recommend you check out the Black Whale. They have one of the best seafood here. One of my favorite dishes that I get over there, I forgot what is it called. I think it's called lobster Terminator, something like that. And also for the appetizer, I get the boom boom shrimp. So if you ever visit New Bedford, my #1 recommendation is the black whale, and check out their seafood. It's delicious, very, very good here. So I mean, you'll find restaurants almost everywhere here in New Bedford. You find some in the northern area, in the south end, west, I mean, you name it, you'll find almost every corner of New Bedford. You'll find a place to eat. So if you're a foodie person, you definitely will enjoy New Bedford. So number 5 is cost of living, and I'll explain in a minute, because I know some people might not agree with me. I have some people saying, New Bedford is becoming very expensive, it's not affordable anymore. But let me explain. So when you compare New Bedford with the places like Boston or maybe the Cape Cod area, New Bedford is still affordable compared to those places. I mean, I have a friend that lives in the Boston area, and he's paying roughly almost $4,000 in rent, which is pretty crazy. That's insane. And so here in New Bedford, you know, you often find some apartments that you can rent for just around like $1,500. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is getting more expensive compared to before, but obviously things change. It doesn't always stay the same. It's not like back then, maybe probably like 10 years ago, when we used to rent for like $700, $800 a month. But of course, that's not gonna stay the same. It always changes. But you can still rent some places for $1,500 a month. And actually, I've been getting a lot of calls from people coming from the Western Mass, because they're looking for more affordable places here. So when you compare New Bedford with the Western Mass side, it is still very affordable, and also there's affordable healthcare here as well. So I think cost of living overall here in New Bedford is still very good and still affordable compared to some other places here. Number 6 here on my list here is the daycare. This one you need to know. So if you're moving here to New Bedford and you have, if you have babies, have kids that you will need daycare, my #1 recommendation is I highly recommend. That's the first thing that you need to look into, because it is very hard to find a daycare here. So you'll have to put your name on the list. It could take months and months. So you need to find a daycare before you do anything. Because I remember one time when I was looking for daycare for my son, it took me almost a year to find a daycare for my son. So it takes a long time to find a daycare, and not only that, it is still expensive too. And I think daycare in almost everywhere it is expensive, but here in New Bedford, there's not many options here for daycare. So you really need to contact the daycare. You need to find a way to get on that waiting list, because you can find yourself waiting months and months without finding a daycare here in New Bedford. So that's my #1 recommendation. You need to call the daycare and get on that waiting list. You really need to. But if you don't have kids, you'll be fine. But if you have kids, get on that daycare waiting list. Where we at? Number seven. So driving. So this one, I kind of want to share this, because driving around here in New Bedford is actually it's not too bad. So when you compare New Bedford with the places like Boston, where the traffic is a nightmare, I hate going to Boston. Sometimes I have to go for my doctor's appointment, but the driving there sucks. It is terrible. And not only that, when you drive around Boston area, and on top of traffic, you'll find a hard time finding a place to park. So here in New Bedford, in my opinion, I think driving is very easy. And New Bedford is not a massive city with just under just a little bit over 100,000 people. So it's easy to get around. And some people, sometimes they even get around just using the bike during summertime. So you're not gonna see a massive traffic here in New Bedford. It's very easy to get around. Sometimes you might see a little bit of traffic on when people are getting off the Highway 18 coming on Campton Street. So you might see a little bit of traffic there. And also during the rush hour, you might see some traffic on Acushnet Ave with kids getting off to school. You might see, the buses there. You might see a little bit of traffic, but nothing crazy. Nothing like crazy like some other places like maybe New York or Boston. So I wanted to include this there, so it's something that you need to know before you move to New Bedford. You're not gonna have a crazy traffic. So if you're coming from a place where the traffic is crazy, coming to New Bedford, you're definitely gonna get a break from that. All right, so number 8 is loud city. So I kind of wanted to include this here to let you know that New Bedford sometimes can be very loud, especially during the summertime. It is a tourist city. We get a lot of people visiting New Bedford, and oftentimes too, they do a lot of feasts, they do parades, and they also do a lot of activities here, especially during the summertime. Sometimes somewhere around downtown. Sometimes every summertime they do activities, and there's also a lot of bars, clubs, and also that's where the ferry is to take the boats to go to Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. So oftentimes you'll find New Bedford being very loud, and especially around the northern area too. So during summertime it can get very loud. They do Portuguese parade there almost every year, and you find people often riding their motorcycles, and people on the bikes, and people running, walking. So it can be very loud. So if it's something that maybe if you're looking for a place where it's like very quiet, New Bedford sometimes, like I said, it can be very loud. So just make sure you work with somebody that really knows the area, that can put you in a great area. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any question, and if you are thinking about moving to New Bedford, I could definitely help you out. Number 9 is being very close to the beach. This one is one of my favorites. This one I really love New Bedford because I like to stay very close to the water. I came from a tropical island, and being close to the water, it was like my thing. I grew up near the water, so I really enjoy the beach here in New Bedford. So if you're somebody that really likes to stay very close to the water, maybe you enjoy fishing, you enjoy swimming, New Bedford is, it's a beautiful place for that. But one thing I have to say, if you live very close to the beach, so wintertime it can get very cold, but summertime is really nice. And I get a lot of people calling me. I get a lot of reach out. People want to move to New Bedford because they want to stay very close to the beach. They enjoy the beach. So that's something that you need to know before you make a move to New Bedford. Actually, I did some vlogs around the beach area, so you can go to my channel, you can check those out. But yeah, the beach is it's a plus having a beach here in New Bedford. All right, so my last one here on the list is the nightlife. So if you're the type of person that enjoys having fun during the nights, and if you like to drink, you like to go out, you like to go to bars, clubs, New Bedford is a beautiful place for that, especially here in downtown. We got some beautiful bars. Back then when I was younger, I used to go out a lot, almost every weekends with my friend. I mean, I don't really go anymore right now. Having 2 kids and a wife, it's tough for me to go out right now. But if especially if you're a single person, New Bedford, it's beautiful place for nightlife. I highly recommend you check out the downtown area there. Plenty of bars and clubs there. So but if something it's something that you need to know before you decide to make a move, because most people move in here, they want to know what's in here before they decide to make a move. So nightlife, it's so when it comes to nightlife, New Bedford is a great place for that. And so if you have any question, reach out to me anytime, and I create a whole playlist here where I do some amazing vlogs here in New Bedford, so you can go ahead and check those out.